One last shot at a star falls short. Plus, Nicole introduces her girlfriend to her hot teammate that she definitely doesn't flirt with. Shane packs his bag but stops short of walking out of the game. Frank and Sam polish off their damn near flawless run through the game. And Nany and Turbo get their shot of redemption but fall short thanks to a comedic performance for the ages from Steve and Adam, propelling them to the record-tying 5th elimination win of the season. It's the challenge. All Stars Rivals episode 10 recap coming up right now. What up, my fellow challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future, if it's happening in the Challenge universe. We are here to document it. I am your host and dedicated Challenge historian, Jacob Hollabaugh. Thank you so much for being here with me on this Thursday, the day after we saw episode 10, the not penultimate episode, but kind of the penultimate as far as the actual game is considered, episode of this All-Stars season. As I said last week, the final couple episodes this year are going to, or for this season, are going to be coming out on Thursdays instead of super late on Wednesday night due to a new secondary part-time job that has me working on those Wednesday nights. So I did end up watching very late last night, finished around midnight, and thought, do I want to record right now? Do I want to wait? And ended up waiting, was a little groggy, a little tired, and wanted to give you the best possible recap you could get. So that's what we're here to do. Recap episode 10. And the next couple of weeks, because it looks like a 2-part finale, will also be out likely on Thursday. Earlier than this one is going to be posted. Will be much earlier in the mornings, but still will be on Thursday. And then, of course, when this season wraps up, we will be back one extra time to do an All-Stars 5 season recap and awards. And then there will be a potentially pretty long off season. There's still, like, I don't even know, halfway through maybe filming season 41. We're going to have a 2, 3, 4 month break of the challenge, which we've barely had even a week break between seasons for like 3 calendar years or something wild and crazy like that right now. So I actually am looking forward to a little break. I wish it was, 2 months would be good. Maybe if they could really rush through the editing process, but we don't want to rush anything. We want 41 to be good. During that off season, I will get to work for sure on those ranking videos that I have talked about. I will start putting out some feelers for maybe a couple possible interviews. I will do my best to keep the content coming. It will very likely not be weekly, though, for anywhere near the entirety of what looks to be that 3 to 4 month or so off season. As for this episode right here and now, instead of the typical walk through the episode, I'm just going to go team by team because there's at least one kind of overarching thing to discuss of all 5 teams that took part in this episode, and it's just a little easier to talk about each of them and their thing going on one by one versus walk through the episode and go back and forth on when we're talking about this or that or the other. So that's what we're going to do, and then we'll do the awards and, of course, make our predictions for the final. So here we go. Episode 10, All-Stars 5 Rivals. Let's go. First team to discuss is the one we probably have the least to discuss, and that is Nicole and Mel, but we still do get some of them in this episode, and there still is, one big thing to discuss with them, and that is, are they going to, are they not, or have they not? This is all super past tense, so did they or did they not? They're getting along swimmingly. We have, a couple more scenes this episode of being flirty, having a good time, being in a way better place as teammates and partners, and now they can compete, but also just having a good old time in the house, doing some, very fun workouts. It's one way to work out with your partner. It definitely looks, like a good time. They've proven they have a shot at this thing, some small shot, but more than the 0%. I upgraded them from the 0% a week or two ago, and with that elimination win last week for sure. But I've got to say, with the history Nicole has on the show, and being a part of shows like X on the Beach, or hers was X on the Peak, right? Her and Laurel were on, was that the one? They were on like this mountain instead of the beach. I don't remember. But the flirtation, there's a reason they're editing it to be like, are they or are they not, because of some, past history maybe, and asking her the questions in the confessional, and her saying, that's in the past, we don't do that anymore. But to say all that And then the move of calling your girlfriend and having Mel with there be like, hey, girlfriend, whose name was it, Kate? I apologize. I don't think I wrote it down. I think it might have been Kate. If I'm getting that wrong, my bad, Kate, or whatever your name would be. But calling her and being like, hey, here's my hot partner that we're both like giddy and giggling to like introduce the two of you. Does this seem weird to you? This seems weird to me, right? All right, Mel, why don't you go ahead and leave? Hot partner, why don't you go ahead and leave and let me talk to my girlfriend who I just introduced my hot partner to? That's a wild move by Nicole. In my book, I don't know. My book definitely can be wrong. Everyone has different books that they're playing from, but yeah, I found that kind of hilarious. And depends if we knew what did or did not happen in that challenge house, then I could say that's completely hilarious and harmless. Or there's a version of that that's like, wow, that's pretty messed up. But I like to think that we're getting all honesty here in the confessional booths. And the one little quick attempted kind of kiss that we saw last week was all of it. And yeah, but still a wild move, bringing in Mel for that call home. Now let's talk about Frank and Sam, who win the daily challenge this week. And I love the daily challenge. Liked everything about it. We didn't get, same location, didn't quite get a Bob and motherfucking Weave moment out of this one, but still a very good daily. I think a solid one to use as the last daily of the season as far as kind of like difficulty level and what they were all being asked to do. And Frank and Sam don't just win. They win going away. We never see them drop, and that is because they didn't drop. Sam and Frank had both afterwards said as much on social media of like, we never dropped. And they also both were like, and we won this by like 10 or 15 minutes. Like, this wasn't close. We finished our puzzle by the time they showed up. This is just really well edited to make it look like, oh, a couple other teams got there and this is kind of close and they're all putting things on. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, why would the other teams have, like, the other teams we did see, I think Steven Adam and Nany and Turbo, like, get a lot of their pieces on, they would have just stopped if you actually won. So I was like, I don't really know what I believe here. I know you won and I know you performed extremely well. I just don't know how well your competitors performed relative to you, whether it actually was like, a contest that you performed great and so you won, or you performed great and smoked everyone. Either way, still great, and leads to them having the ability to guarantee the final elimination matchup that they want, which would be Nany and Turbo versus Steve and Adam, and take the final two quote unquote good teams, or at least the teams they've set over in the threat, while they remained in the We Suck alliance over on the other side, and pit them against each other so that only one of them comes to the final with the three We Suck alliance member teams that are left, and give everyone a solid shot at this. And so Frank has to go back on the deal that he made with Adam. I was long thinking this was going to happen at some point because it felt like we only saw that deal get made mostly till it was like there's got to be a reason they like showed us this. They have a lot to pick from as far as what they show us, what conversations they show us. Usually almost everything we're seeing is an element we're seeing for a reason, has a purpose within the story that the editors are choosing to tell based on what story actually went down and happened in the footage they have. And it seems like the whole, the decision of who to vote in and then who was going to get sent in, it seems like the whole house knew this was what's going down. It seems like we probably missed out on a lot of conversations of like this, multiple rounds ago, this might have even been set up of like, once last week occurred and they're like, we get to throw in these two teams, give them a chance for a star. Everyone knows they're going to steal Nany and Turbo. And then when we're not going directly to the final and Nany and Turbo are still here, we all probably have the discussion that I had when trying to predict at the end of last week's episode, trying to predict what would happen this week, which is if they're still here, they're going to have a shot. There's going to be another elimination. Otherwise, TJ would have told them to go home and we would into the final. And if there's another elimination, we've kind of got to just put them in, because if we don't, what one of us loses and goes home and that star is just up for grabs. And then it's like, does TJ just give it to them or like what happens? And so seemed we didn't see any of that conversation because it was just a wrap. Everyone knew we're going to let Nany and Turbo go in. And obviously of the other four of us, Steve and Adam, you're going to be the odd guys out here as far as who we want to go in with them. We'd prefer one of you to lose, not one of us. And yeah, it goes as according to plan. And Frank officially, and Sam was there, but letting Frank lead on the political front here. This is a very, like, maybe not flawless season, because he did get called out a couple of times and, lied his way through getting called out and admitting in confessional. Those were accurate call outs. Amber being the number one that on her way out was like, read the room correctly, and everyone else kind of maybe sort of knew. But everything Frank wanted to happen pretty much all season long happened. And Frank and Sam basically stayed safe a majority of the season. And he really, really ran this thing. So unbelievable performance from him, and a great performance, end of season performance by the two of them, getting 3 daily wins in the end, right? 2 or 3 of them. But getting this last one, being in that position to make sure no one else pulled any funny business, no one else made any sort of deal, and that they didn't end up in there, that no matter what, that Steve and Adam would go against Turbo and Nany, and they would get the group of teams in the final that they most desired. Then the winning drama pair of the episode, Shane and Devon. What an episode for the two of them, and really what a back half of the season for the two of them. They, were the ones coming into the season, was like, this pair is going to be amazing. They're both fantastic cast members, great at making good TV, loud, can get messy, can get drama, the whole thing. It's going to be wonderful. How lucky are we? And then we didn't hear from them literally almost at all for like 3-4 episodes. And then they showed up. And once they showed up, they were very, very much a part of the storylines, very much delivering on the promise of what we thought Shane and Devon being on a team and just being on a season in general could bring. So great stuff from them. Devon is truly living by her word. She is doing the Lord's work here by keeping her cool, by keeping it composed, by not letting old Devon come out, as she says a couple times in this episode, of like, I've moved on, I've matured a little bit, I've looked at the way I've acted at different times, and like, we ain't doing that anymore. We're over here. We're being a role model. We're being a model citizen. We're doing everything right. We're staying patient, all the things. She is doing the Lord's work. And so shout out to her for that, because Shane wants a reaction. Shane definitely wants a reaction out of all of this, all of the bickering, all of the yelling, all of the like, do it this way, no, do it that way. Why are you doing it wrong during the daily challenges that we've seen? Even going back, like the clip they showed from last week when they eventually won, but they had that first one where seemingly for no real reason right before the horn blew, he was, got mad of like, point me this way, turn me this way. It's like, you're not even moving yet, dude. What are you talking about that you're turning one way? Like, calm down. He wants that reaction out of it. He feeds off it. He has a good time with it, even if it's, emotionally draining or angry or anxiety inducing or whatever it is for him. On the negative side, there is some part of him that, like, wants that those patterns they reference and kind of talk directly about different points of this episode are that, like, when you start to act in your worst self in those ways that he's doing to some degree here, you're doing it in a part of you wants the other person to reciprocate in, like, let's just go down this familiar but bad path. We know it's bad, but it also feels familiar, and we also know that in the moment there's a reason we're kind of trapped in these things, and like, let's do it. And she isn't giving back what he is trying to deliver to her, and that's amazing from her standpoint. That's fantastic. But for him, it's then incredibly frustrating. One, because he's like, fight with me, argue with me, come on, like, why not? I know you can, like, go ahead and do it. And now I'm the only one arguing, now I'm like looking worse. And I think that's where some of the incorrect, but I see how he gets to the point of being like, she's playing it out to be the victim and is making me bad, and like, that's manipulative, or all the different things he says there. I get how he feels that way. I can empathize with that, but I think he even knows, like, that he's probably wrong in those instances, and that's more of him reacting to, like, well, what the hell is she being like good, like a better person for? Why is she being a more patient person? Why? Come on down here. Come on back down to where I'm still living, and let's do this thing. It's old hat. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time. Let's yell at each other a little bit. So he's kind of pining for that. And we definitely, heard multiple people within the episode say that, the shouting and the things at the Daily Challenge were worse or meaner, or worse language was used than what was shown, or what he was kind of owning up to. A few people, I believe, on a few of the cast members, that is, on social media, said similar during the episode. Whatever, I don't know. I'll let Shane and Davon cover that, or maybe they did and I haven't seen that, or read that yet, or listened to that yet, or whatever, if they're on any of the podcasts or doing any tweeting themselves, anything like that. The final thing I will just say about the two of them is, well, I love the moment of Davon, being talented. Was she talking to Adam in that moment, I think, or whoever it was? But the, you know, Shane, even at his age, thinks that being the villain on TV is cool. And that is such a biting line. And she definitely knows, like, the camera angle is perfect. That shot is set up so beautifully for Shane to hear, turn and look over the shoulder, and, eventually butt into the conversation of, excuse me, I can hear every word you're saying. But Davon very clearly knows that he can hear, like, the same as he's just barely has to turn his head to see her over his shoulder. She can borderline see him in her peripheral view at that moment. She knows he's going to hear that, which is all good. And it leads me to my final point about Shane, who I didn't listen to a ton of it, but I saw some of the clips and I started listening to a little of it. I'll probably finish it at some point. He was on with Bananas last week, and just kind of a lot of what they talked about and some of the clips and things from the episode were about how they're there to make good television, and they're both pretty open about, like, we're trying to make good television, so we'll be dramatic, and it's okay because we know it's good TV. And we even literally have Shane say in this episode, once they have their kind of heart to heart, which is a really wonderful moment where I do think they like learn about each other, and we'll see if their code words work in the final or not. But I thought that was like real, genuine, really good stuff from them on, like, let's figure out how to overcome these negative patterns that we have, or the worst sides of each other that we bring out, or that just don't coexist together that well. I thought that was all really great. But we get him literally saying, like, when she's like, wow, you packed your bag, like, were you actually going to go home? And he was like, yeah, I was gonna, but whatever, I'm still here. Makes for good TV. It's just, some people might see that and be like, that feels fake, or that feels like I don't want the cast to be doing that, to like be thinking of that. And I hear you, but I do think this is a good example, and Shane is a good example of the delineation. I don't always love the OGs when they're just like, we're real and we're authentic, and the new cast sucks and they're fake and they're Instagram influencers and blah, 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 blah. I think it's usually painted with way too broad of a brush and just kind of lazily done, but that there is kernels of truth within that and interesting things to discuss. But there's also examples of, both extremes of that spectrum, if you will, in OG cast members and in new cast members. And Shane is a really great example of one of the older cast members that it's not forced. He's not staging anything. He's not faking anything to make the good TV. But instead, he's going into a season and goes into filming knowing, if a situation calls for, or I'm compelled to be my worst self, or to be my most dramatic self, or to let any and every emotion I feel just out, like just whatever is in the mind, boom, out, no filter here, that worst case, I might look shitty, but it's probably going to end up being good TV. One way or the other is going to be good for the television product. So when I'm here in this world, I can exist a little differently than out in the real world. I can take the filters off. I can give in to some of my worst trappings, and because it is going to be better for the television product. And that's this like slight but important difference than, the person who might like sit back and watch a scene unfold and think to themselves, okay, like if I was like the producer right now, I would want someone to come in and say this. Okay, I'll go do it. And it wasn't like it's not really how they feel. It's not a real emotion they're feeling. It's like literally them trying to create and force a good moment, or yeah, I think you get it. I'm not doing very good with my words right now, but I think you can understand that slight but important difference of the person who is just understanding in this situation. It's authentic, but I can be unhinged. I can be no filter. I can be all of these things here that I might be a little more restrained or try to be the most mature version, the best version, the most developed version of myself in the real world. I can let some of that down here and have some fun and be expressive and be dramatic. And it's authentic versus the forced kind. And so I think all of that is what Shane is doing here. I think all of this is very real for him, but is also something like, I don't think this is how exactly he would act out in the real world, but in this environment, he allows himself to have fun, to give in to some of these negative, the anxieties, the emotions, the stress, and know that ultimately it's going to make good TV. Next up, our new record tying duo, Steve and Adam. They have a bunch of things in this episode, mainly the big elimination win. We'll get to that. But first, we have Adam briefly, like, should be mentioned in the Shane Devon. I didn't even fully, I don't think we got enough of the footage or the full exact explanation on what exactly went down at the end of the daily challenge, whether like Shane was, get wobbly or woozy and Adam like tried to make sure he wasn't going to fall, so put his hand on it, or they were all like, okay, teacher's about to talk, let's all like put our arms around each other for some, like, I didn't totally get that, but I did enjoy Adam just constantly going back to Shane a couple different times, like, do you want to be a decent human yet? Can we talk about this? Can we talk about how you're acting? Okay, no, okay, fine, that's okay, well, we're just try again in a couple hours, don't worry, I'll be back. So enjoyed all of that, as I also very much enjoyed then the Shane reciprocating a little bit, and shout out to him, sneaky guy, that Shane, within his own meltdown and everything, knowing also of like, hey, Adam, you never fully told me, like, while you're doing all this to me, talking all this stuff to me, it'd be interesting, you never fully told me explain what went down between you and Steve again, and why did he tell you stuff, and basically like teeing Adam up to be like, hey, have you ever like gotten closure for that? Have you ever like, did you guys like talk about it? Maybe you should go talk about it again or whatever. So really great little extra poke there from Shane to maybe help to prompt this situation. But Adam does want to then talk about it with Steve, and they have I'm going to say, non-conversation about it, because he straight up, he uses the word like ask for an apology and an explanation. He's like, those two things would be really helpful. You never fully have said you're sorry, and you've never really given me a good reason. So could I have both of those, please? And Steve, one, seems truly caught off guard. Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what's going on with Steve. I think, on purpose from him. I think he, is giving off a mystique, an aloofness, purposely in a lot of situations, as far as how his facial expression back to someone who is asking him a question, talking to him, doing something, whatever. But in this moment, I really did feel like, I feel like I could hear his brain and hear his inner monologue of like, oh, I didn't think we were ever going to I didn't think this was going to come up again. I thought we were done talking about this, never to be talked about again, because there's nothing else to talk about. Okay, I guess I'll try to say something here. And then he tried to say something, and he basically said nothing. It was a non-apology, and it was a non-explanation, at least what we saw. And so, yeah, I thought that moment was hilarious. And this duo is just so much fun. And of course, then we get the greatest example of just how fun they are later in the episode, because they do get sent in, and they kind of had to know this was going to happen. I already, kind of said this earlier with the Nany Turbo part 2, or the Frank, and we're talking about Frank and Sam and the vote and everything. There would have been more discussion. There would have been more. We would have seen more. The whole house just kind of seemed to know what was up. And so they kind of had to know this. If they didn't win the daily challenge, this is probably what's going to happen. Nany and Turbo are going to get to go in, and the house is going to be like, well, if someone has to go against them, it's going to be the two of you. So they seem to know the deal. The whole house seemed to know the deal, and they do go into elimination, and they get the win, the 5th elimination win of the season, which ties the record with Sarah Grayson, who did it first on the gauntlet, Wes and Casey, who did it on Fresh Meat, and Horacio, who did it on Ride or Dies, where he did it himself, because there was a 2 individual, him and Olivia won 3 team eliminations, and then he won 2 solo ones on his own, because that season, like so many of the recent ones, was convoluted as far as how the format was working there. So Steve and Adam joined that illustrious grouping there with the most unbelievable, the most iconic, the most comedic performance in an elimination we've probably ever seen as far as the comedy side of that goes. There was definitely some comedic eliminations way back in the day when they could kind of afford to be a little sillier during a lot of the eliminations, but this is really, really one for the books. And it was the right strategy too. It's the right strategy versus Nany and Turbo being like, we'll answer your questions and we'll just sometimes we'll lie, sometimes we won't. But good on Steve and Adam for having a strategy on that side of the thing too. And, being able to suss out and correctly read them very accurately, read Nany, that is, very accurately. But they had the comedy bit that they did was definitely the right strategy of, if you don't want them to have any idea and have to just take a 50-50 guess, which they did go 2 for 2 on those 50-50 guesses. So that was, at least kept Nany and Turbo in it. But you go full comedy, you go just goofy, you say a bunch of shit, you act weird, you giggle, you laugh. The moment that it was explained, I definitely wouldn't have had it in me to be nearly as entertaining and funny as these two were. But I did have the initial thought of once he explained it, of just you can't answer the questions. You just got to sit there and laugh over and over and maybe pick one word, whether it's yes, no, whether it's just a name or pass or something. I was pick a word and just giggle and laugh and make faces and say that one word as an answer to anything and everything they say to you, and you can get through this. They took that strategy to a whole different stratosphere. And yeah, it was wonderful. It was amazing. It is in the running for the moment of the season for sure. And then they had the best strategy when it came to transporting the balls to flawless victory from the two of them. And with the 5th elimination win, but also Steve, not so quietly, honestly, pretty loudly now in these last 2 seasons. He has won 8 eliminations in a row in 2 seasons of All-Stars 4 and 5. Quickly climbed the all-time elimination win charts. I don't know where near the top he is, but 8 in 2 seasons is pretty wild, pretty unheard of. I think Wes, depending which 2 seasons, I guess he only went into 1 or 2 elimination of the duel, maybe. So he probably didn't have that. I don't know if anyone's had 8 wins. Did Laurel get 5 in 1 season too? Was I forgetting her earlier? I don't remember. A few people have done it. Sarah did it first, which is interesting thing to say. Adam and Steve were there on the gauntlet when Sarah set the record originally. Adam very much played a big part in Sarah going in all 5 times and was there, and they were champions on the same team together. Steve left about halfway through when he lost a Tangram puzzle challenge to the one and only Trishelle. So they're the heavy favorites in the final. I definitely expect them to win. Expect them to possibly win easy, but we will see if that's what my final prediction is here in a moment. But first, we have to talk about one more team. Nany and Turbo. Poor timing ultimately dooms them here. This just the setup, this format, now that they've seen it a couple times, if people come back, I know there was nothing really Nany and Turbo could have done about this, but you can kind of see where things are going. If your alliance is fallen through and you're looked at as one of the top threats, you can kind of play out the last 3-ish rounds and weeks and kind of see how this is going to happen. And it just turns into bad timing where then it's they're the ones that the whole house has just decided, we're setting this thing up last week. There's literally nothing you can do about it. And the winner is going to take your star. And then you're going to get one chance to earn it back, but you're going to have to beat the other best team in the house. That's what you're dealt. And they ultimately lost, the elimination to a really great performance by definitely the best team there this season. Best team for sure. They Steve and Adam have been absolutely dominant, winning 5 eliminations, winning 3 or 4 dailies, whatever it was. They've basically won something almost every episode of this season, which is just wild. So, it's a rough timing. It's a rough go there for Nany and Turbo. Individually on them, I did a full 180 on Turbo this season. And then I did kind of a rebooting on Nany, if you will. On Turbo, I was all the way out after Ryder dies, of him just being I don't need to see Turbo again. I'm not very interested in it. And, it was cool this first season that he won and everything else. And it was cool seeing Jordan provoke him into getting kicked off the season the second time around. And yeah, but I was just kind of like, the vibe's not right. I think we've got everything we are going to get out of this. And was definitely one that was like, I don't really need to see him back. But this season, I was pretty entertained. It's kind of fun to have the outcast that stays to himself in the house. When his confidence and aggression is kind of targeted and at the right targets and in the right ways, it's entertaining and interesting to watch. It's just sometimes that turns into it could be gross to watch. We can all laugh and have a good time about the music video and think it's hilarious and funny, but it is the music video that he made, and the commentary that he is making within that music video and everything else is still Turbo. So it's one big package with him that comes, but it's a very talented one as far as the competition goes. And I think back in and, going to be semi excited to see him right back on our screens on the next season on 41. He and Nany both will be returning on 41. And with Nany, it wasn't like I did a 180. I was never off, against Nany or not interested. She's definitely in that group, of having done 14, 15 seasons, however many she's done. She's in that group with all the rest of them that have done, double digit seasons and just seem to have been here forever and ever and ever of I don't know that there's a whole lot more story to tell. But, there has obviously been recent developments that, Nany is single again now. And so going into 41, she's and coming off of this, last elimination loss and just in a very different place. And there might be more story to tell. There's, a new arc to go down for her as a character within the show and just as a person in life. And I was never out rooting against her. She's always been a favorite, but I was really, really rooting for her back, 5-6 seasons into a run. I was like, I really want her to get a win. Her and Leroy were both in the same stratosphere of just we love these two. I want them to win so bad. They deserve it. They're awesome. They're great cast members. They've been great cast members. And so I just lost some of the, verve behind that feeling. And this season really brought it back, especially within this episode and within last week's episode. I found myself really being damn, I really want Nany to win this season. I want Nany and Turbo to win this. I want her to get a win. This would be so cool and so awesome. And so I know going into 41, I am definitely going to be Team Nany again, all the way, wanting it to happen really, really badly, wanting to see her get that elusive victory if she can. And I think just do a battle of the seasons already and let Nany and Leroy try to what if they could win it together? What if, 15 plus seasons in for the both of them, they were paired up and somehow they brought home that title together? They could just rig the whole thing for them. I think a lot of the challenge fandom would be fine with it. So Team Nany, and somehow inexplicably mildly Team Turbo once again, but they will not be running TJ's final. Quote of the episode. We've got a couple nominees. Basically all Davon and Shane. Shane has the potential to bring Day from Inglewood resurrected. He thinks being a villain on television is still cool at his age. That was great. And the back and forth of you packed up your stuff and said you wanted to go home. It's good TV, which is just fantastic. And again, I was all for it. I don't find that inauthentic or anything like that. So Shane and Devon, joint award for this week. Best moment. Adam letting Shane have it about being a decent person. Loved both of those interactions that took place. Steve's non-apology to Adam. Loved that. Shane storming out of the club or to the basement of the club off camera at the club, which is another just expert move of if you're kind of getting accused of playing it up for the cameras or whatever, you play it up for the cameras off camera because you still have a mic on and they're just going to point. They're going to do exactly what they did. They're going to point the camera at the staircase you went down and it's going to just make it all the better. Masterclass move by Shane. He understands this very, very well. Adam and Steve's comedy routine, of course. And then at the very end of the episode, Nany and Turbo, I really enjoyed that they do the we're going to end as friends. And then Nany be like, no, we're family. And giving him a really big, genuine hug of we're good. I love you. You're the best. Thanks for being a great partner again. And I'm glad we came around. That moment was really great. But obviously, Steven Adams' comedy routine is the winner of the award and the MVP of the season. Excuse me, not the MVP of the season. MVP of the episode. It's a tough call. Some people would say it's got to be Shane. Some people would say it's got to be Adam or Steve. And if you said it's got to be Adam or Steve, you might even probably lean Adam. I'm going the other way. Shane, Davon, Adam, and Steve are the four, people that are certainly on the ballot for this episode. I'm giving it to Steve. I think he's just perfectly suited for both of the great moments that he is a part of in this episode, both he and Adam's performance, the comedy of the elimination, but also the non-apology, non-explanation. I think Steve is the exact person I want to see put in that scenario to give the non-apology, non-explanation. I just genuinely love the facial expressions that man makes. And so, yeah, I'm giving it to Steve. All four, fantastic episode. A surefire ballot vote getters, but Steve's my MVP for this episode. As for the power rankings and predictions, the power rankings and the predictions are hand in hand because we only got 4 teams left and they're going to the final. Nany and Turbo are out of here. Steve and Adam, clear in a way the favorites. Frank and Sam second, Davon, Shane third, Melissa and Nicole in a distant fourth. I think that, it's Steve and Adam's game to win or lose. It's Frank and Sam and Davon and Shane have a shot to push Steve or Adam, but I think they're going to be battling out for second. I think Melissa and Nicole are going to get fourth, which is basically my predictions. I guess you shouldn't do power rankings when it's just exactly saying your predictions that I also wrote down on the season. Went 0 for 3 last week. Brutal stretch to end the season. 13.5 out of 26. Exactly 500. Technically, that half victory I had like 6 weeks ago saves me to technically have gone over 500, but only on technicality. So not very good predictions wise for me this season. But for the final, just as I said moments ago, I feel really confident. I think Steve and Adam are going to win. I don't think they're just going to win. I think they're going to win with ease. I think they're going to win a majority of the checkpoints. I think they're going to be great at doing anything and everything that is asked of them. They're going to work great together. Steve is going to get his redemption for the mental mistake that cost him the All-Stars 4 victory. Adam is going to get the redemption for Steve taking his star and taking away his shot to be the one winning the All-Stars 4 final. Very likely would have competed quite well in that final. I think they win with ease. I think Frank and Sam, Davon and Shane are both going to do really well. And I think they're both going to have like one major screw up or bad checkpoint situation that, at some point during it, it's like, oh, they just fell pretty far behind Steve and Adam. And they both have one of those moments where it's like, okay, Steve and Adam are like in the clear. Frank and Sam, Davon and Shane are doing really well, but they are locked in a tight second place battle. That'll be kind of the most entertaining thing of the final. And then Mel and Nicole, I think, are going to not be nearly as flirty while getting beaten down by TJ's final. But I do predict that they will both finish, which will be a win considering last time we saw Mel in the final, she was not able to finish. She was also unknowingly pregnant, so potentially a good thing that she did not finish that. And the last 2 times we've seen Nicole in a final, she has exited due to a DQ, injury way back when on what season was that? I don't remember. She's been the last 2 finals she's been in have not gone her way for one reason or another. So they're both going to finish, and I think that'll be pretty good for them. So that's the predictions. That's the episode. We will be back next week again on Thursday, not late Wednesday night, but we will be back to talk about what I believe is then the penultimate. It's going to be a 2-part finale. So buckle up and let's see if Steve and Adam can get it done. Thank you as always for being here, listening, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Love you. Talk to you next week. Peace.